Warning: the views and opinions expressed in this program are our own and/or those of our guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our employers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Having a good attorney has been a game changer for me in my career as a BDO.
They're going to pick up the phone. They're going to call the buyer's attorneys. They're going to call the seller's attorneys, and they're going to get stuff done directly and make your closer feel a little bit more at ease.
Based on this, here is our interpretation. We believe this is a risk because of this. Bank, how do you want to proceed? Or this is downright, you can't do this. Or downright, you can do this. That's what attorneys are for.
Sounds like you're doing your job.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
The crisp counsel is here. Nice jacket, too.
I know the jacket, man. You didn't have to do that for us.
Yeah, he did.
no.
I'm in a hoodie. My hair's not even brushed.
Let's be honest. He's doing it for him. He's not doing it for us.
He
You're
might,
right.
he might be crispy, but every time I see Scott, I ask him the same question every time. Right, Scott?
What's that?
What's your new PR on the bench?
Oh, gosh.
Dude, Scott is jacked. Absolutely
What?
Yeah,
jacked.
I've heard about this,
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
I've heard you put up some weight,
Take
Scott.
off your
Oh, yeah.
shirt.
Scott,
Yeah, that would be a podcast episode, wouldn't it?
Scott,
We've talked
Scott
about
is
way
jacked.
worse.
He can throw some weight up for sure.
I try.
So what's
Oh
the
my
PR
God.
then, Scott?
Oh, I right now I don't go over 400, but I used to be able to.
Oh,
Pretty good.
On the bench, you don't go over 400?
No,
I can't even lift the bar.
Jesus, I've never seen 400. I'm not even going to act like I've ever seen that.
That is at least a decade ago at this point. That's old news.
That's bonkers.
wild, man.
I'm old now, man.
That's wild. Yeah. You get to a certain age and you look at your joints and you're like, I could do it, but I kind of want to keep this elbow for a while.
Yeah,
Want
you gotta
to
warm up
keep
for an
my
hour.
shoulders. Yeah,
You
exactly.
got to warm up and stretch for 30 minutes just to put up 225 these days, let alone 400.
Oh, come on. 225 is a warm up rep for Scott.
That's the whole reason I agreed to do this. This is like a big old ego pump for me. This is great.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the BDO Show, a podcast for passionate BDOs wanting to level up their game with advice and stories from battle-tested BDOs. I'm your host, Emily Detour, and I'm here with my fellow co-hosts, Sterling Birdsong and Ryan Kroge. At the beginning of each episode, we're always going to remind you to like, subscribe, and send your topics and suggestions to the BDO Show at artofsba.com. And do not forget to check out our whole family of shows, SBA Today, which airs live every week, as well as our flagship program, the Art of SBA Lending Podcast. Okay, BDOs, it's story time. And no, I am not talking about the time Sterling tried to finance a zoo. You'll have to go back to episode 3 for that. I'm talking about the story that your borrower has in their head, and they may need that extra boost to finally get it onto paper. Rapid Business Plans is a known and trusted partner that can help them do just that. Whether your borrowers are working towards acquiring a business, starting one up, or expanding and making moves, within just a few short days, Rapid Business Plans will deliver powerful, fast SBA and USDA-ready business plans with projections and assumptions. If they need an export business plan for an ITL loan or a feasibility study, they have you covered there too. We know this process is not a walk in the park, or should I say zoo. Let the Rapid Business Plans team take some of the wild out of the process so that your borrower's vision and passions can come to life. For more information or to get acquainted, email Bethany McClellan at bethany@rapidbusinessplans.com or click the link in the show notes. All right, today's episode, we have a special guest with us, Scott Oliver. I kind of came up with the episode name because this is what I feel like. I think about our legal teams that we work with. Legals and lenders, aka the dream team, because we all know how important the counsel side of the 7A loan process is, especially during closing. Scott, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, well, thank you for having me, Emily. I appreciate it. I love the show. I'm Scott Oliver. I'm a partner at Lewis Kappes. I am co-chair of our SBA legal department. We are a group of around 16 people who eat, sleep, and breathe SBA lending. So this is very timely coming out with SOP 5010-8 on the horizon, and I look forward to speaking with you all.
Awesome. All right, guys, let's go ahead and open up the episode. So, Sterling, why don't we kick it off with you? Why don't we, for all the new BDOs listening in and some seasoned BDOs who maybe forget from time to time, let's talk about how the loan process flows,
Sure.
kind of like from stage to stage, and how and when we engage counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the life cycle of a loan. It usually starts with essentially just the BDO. The BDO will be speaking to either a broker or a prospect directly, and they'll be essentially gathering information, just trying to figure out an idea of what the customer wants. What is your ideal loan structure? What is it that you're actually looking to accomplish? How much money do you actually need to be able to accomplish it? Once you have an idea of that, then you usually give them a checklist of items. You get your initial checklist, and then once you have your initial checklist, that's when you issue your term sheet. And I would say that that's kind of the first stage. There is the getting to the term sheet stage. Once you get the term sheet signed, and then once you get your expense deposit, if you collect one, then it goes into the next stage, which would typically be underwriting. Some people do a little bit of additional document collection before they assign an underwriter. That's something that we do here at Bay First, but essentially it's all part of the underwriting and due diligence process. Okay. Then once you go through the underwriting process, then you get to the approval stage. Okay. And so maybe you have to go to committee, or maybe you have a signing authority, whatever it may be. Once the loan is actually decisioned, and of course, once it's approved, that's when you start that final stage, and that is your closing stage. And at that time, if you have a loan closer that you're working with, obviously they'll be assigned to the loan file. And then that is the moment where you want to get counsel involved. There are times where things are obviously going to be a little bit different. Sometimes you may tag counsel a little bit earlier if you know it's going to be a rush closing, or if you know there's something that counsel needs to get their eyes on immediately. But in most instances, it's simultaneously with when you actually start the closing process. Okay, closer will reach out to the counsel of choice, and they will engage with them, and they will say, "Hey, will you assist us in helping us close this SBA loan, making sure that we're doing everything the right way to protect the bank, protect the customer, and obviously make sure that we're not, outside of the rules for SBA as well." And so that's really where counsel comes into play. It's the last stage of the process, but the most important stage of the process. And that's why, honestly, having a good attorney has been a game changer for me in my career as a BDO. You guys have heard me say on the show, I really only used two attorneys, and one of them is right here, is Scott. So,
Shout out
you
Scott.
know, just out to Scott. So it's like, I am very particular about the attorneys that I work with, because they can 100% make or break a transaction. There are attorneys out there that, look, they're looking to justify their salary. Let's just be honest. They're looking for
Fee, baby.
issues. They're looking for a way to essentially justify their existence. A good closing attorney knows how to protect the bank, but also knows to get out of the bank's way when they understand risk and that they decided they want to close a transaction. And that's something that, I've come to value is,
Hmm.
hey, protect the bank, but also protect the customer. Make sure that if a deal should close, a deal is closing, and that we're not playing time, wasting people's time, money, or resources.
Yeah. So Scott, Sterling just went over all of that. He went step by step. Let's talk about when you are engaged. Take it from there. What does that look like?
Yeah, so every lender plays it a little bit differently, but I 100% agree with what Sterling said there, that it's typically once we enter that quote unquote closing stage, that's when counsel is involved. Our preference is the earlier, the better.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is to avoid those last minute closing headaches. So as soon as we have a client who gets a signed commitment letter, has that deposit in, it's go time for us. So normally that is going to look like the closer, as Sterling mentioned, will reach out to us and say, "Hey, we have a new file. Please get it open." At that point, we then create a deal team. We have specific verticals for specific lenders and specific closers. But that deal team is then with that closer through and through until the very end, until we cross that closing finish line.
How often is the BDO getting involved when the deal is with you? What? Yeah.
It really depends. Some BDOs like to get a little bit more involved than others. But our job, in my opinion, is once it's with the closer, we want to make the BDO's life as easy as it can possibly be. But we also know the BDO is the one that has the relationship with the customer. So there are circumstances where it's actually advantageous for us to be able to reach out and say, "Hey, BDO, this is happening. Here's where we're at. Can you help us get through this specific sticky issue?" And more times than not, that can be helpful. But again, at our juncture when we're in closing, we want to solve all of those issues so that hopefully, we don't have to have too much dialogue with bank upper management or the BDO or anybody, because it should be smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing I would say is as a BDO, especially if you're trying to be a top performing BDO, you don't want to get too in the weeds on every single closing. You
Right.
have to
You
be
got
able
other
to
deals you gotta
delegate.
work on.
Exactly, because again, the only part of this whole process where it's really just you is the beginning part of the
Mm-hmm.
process. Where
Right.
you're the
Exactly.
one-on-one talking to the customer, bringing the business in. After that, essentially, there's somebody else who's another cook in the kitchen at every single stage of the process until the loan is closed. Yeah, you got to make sure that you are using the resources that are allotted to you within your institution to help you move deals along. And oftentimes, you don't get in the way of your own loan closings. Get out of the way. If there's an issue, jump in, fix the issue immediately. But for the most part, highest and best use. Allow the people to do what they do best, and if they need you, they'll let you know.
That's right, because we got better things to do. I'd rather be at OP's, at lunch, and then
You can't call
later
St.
on and just
Andrews and close loans at the same time. You
Oh
can't,
my
you
god.
can't draft ducks on
That's
the
right,
fourth
man.
hole.
I'm
How-
trying to take vacations. I'm trying to see the world,
Oh my god, stop. You guys are knuckleheads. So, Kroge, does everything run that smooth at First Internet for you guys too when you engage counsel?
It runs as smooth gets. I mean, don't get me wrong. Every deal is going to be different. Everything's going to opportunity is going to have its own little set of derailments, so to speak. And so it's good to have a law firm, and it's good to have a set of attorneys that not only will jump in when things need to jump in, but will pick up the phone and call other attorneys. So I like Lewis Caps because I've got Scott and Chandler on speed dial. I will call them. I've had
They're in the
several.
favorites.
Oh, they're definitely in the favorites. So I had one situation. It was the very first time I have ever done a transaction like this. It was a F reorg. All right. And Scott, I don't was it you that I was working on with this, or was it Chandler?
These guys love these F reorgs now. That's like the new hot thing. This got to
It
be a way to
is.
charge. That's a way to charge somebody $50,000 as
And
a
so
transaction attorney.
and this was about 2 years ago. So I know these have been around for a long time, but it was one of the first ones that our bank has taken on. And so my closer and the selling attorney, they were going back and forth on how this was getting done. And I had about 20 emails on this chain. And I finally said, stop, let me call Scott. And so I called Scott and I said, this is the situation. This is what we're doing. He's like, I know. I'm watching all the emails, this and that. I'm like, Scott, can you just call the seller's attorney and just hammer this out? It's like, don't worry about it, Ryan. I got you. And
So
so
Scott,
I want to say about a day later, I get a call back from Scott. And he goes, "This is what we're doing. This is how it's happening. And so don't worry about it. We got it all figured out." I'm not even over exaggerating. 20 reply emails between my closers and attorneys going back and forth on all this stuff. It took me one call to Scott, one call to the selling attorney. They figured it all out. I mean, it's sometimes it
That's
just
what they're
pays, man.
supposed to
Pick up the
do.
phone. That is
right.
what they're supposed to
That's
do.
their
But
language.
it's
They
like,
speak it.
that's right. As BDOs,
Hey guys, we have a special announcement for anybody involved in M&A transactions. Our partner, Peak Business Valuation, have put together a resource just for BDO Show listeners, and they're giving it away for free. It lists out the rule of thumb formulas, or as Kroge would like to say, the down and dirty, for some of the most common industries that SBA lenders finance. I promise you it's going to come in handy. Kroge's literally still using the one he got from Nagel in 2002. By the way, if you're not thinking about evaluation at the pre-screen phase, you are missing the boat. A lot of BDOs tend to focus on the debt service coverage and they're missing the valuation completely. That's a rookie move and it will become a problem. As a consultative BDO, you should have a sense of whether the business is going to value out. And Peak's handy dandy rule of thumb is here to help. Go to peakbizval.com/BDO show to get yours today.
we as BDOs, we in the SBA world, we have a certain language, we have a certain acumen and acronyms that we use in SBA. Attorneys speak their own languages too. Accountants speak their own languages. Get the attorney involved. Have him talk directly with the other attorney. And that's what I like about Scott and Chandler and those at Lewis Caps. They're going to pick up the phone. They're going to call the buyer's attorneys. They're going to call the seller's attorneys, and they're going to get stuff done directly and to, make your closer feel a little bit more at ease. That's what I like.
So Scott, a couple of questions for you. Question number one is, what the hell is an F reorg, and why is every transaction attorney now trying to make this happen? And is it just a
More
money grab?
billable hours.
Question.
More billable hours. That's what we want.
So that's question number one. And then question number two is, how many transactions are you working on at any given time? And how many emails do you get on a daily basis?
Oh,
Oh,
those are
man.
good.
I don't know which one of those is more difficult. All right. So the first one with F reorgs, you could do an entire podcast episode on those, and you don't want to. Your audience would fall asleep.
What does
Absolutely.
F reorg stand for?
So it's a code that they actually use for the tax code to be able to reorganize an entity. The seller reorganizes as an
Okay.
entity that's a different form before closing in order to get tax advantage status.
Okay.
So again, without going into too much detail, they've become popular because they can save sellers a substantial amount of money, but they're also headaches because it requires the selling party, the target, to reorganize before closing. And most sellers wait until 48 hours before closing to reorganize because they don't know for certain that the deal is going to close. Well, that means that the bank, within that 48 hours before closing, has to update their entire approval, has to run searches, has to change everything in eTran, has to do all of these different things that usually don't occur until that very small window prior to closing. So it's usually a lot of people with their hair on fire. And I found kind of like what Ryan was talking about is it's so important to just get on the phone with seller's attorney and just say, hey, F reorg, this is an SBA deal. Here's how SBA deals work. Here's the timelines. We're going to be pinched. I understand that you don't want to do the reorganization, but we're going to be pinched for time. So let's figure out exactly when we're doing this, how it's going to look, and who's doing what and when. And if you do that, they're not as bad, but they are complex transactions that, quite frankly, there are lenders out there that won't even touch them.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Wait, your second question still.
Okay, so my second question was, how many different deals are you working on at any given time? And I guess also, how many different banks are you working with as well?
Yeah. So the exact number of deals, it will vary based on who it is, time of year, type of transaction that they have, but it can be anywhere from 30 to 60 to up to 80 per person.
Wow.
But they're not all active at the same time. And those are including some small loans and things like that. Normally, when you have a set of transactions that are closing, there's only a handful that are actually moving pretty quickly. But the way that I set up our department is we make sure to constantly have those checks and balances with the deal volume so that there's not a situation where, say, we have a bank and they're getting, secondhand treatment. This sounds like an advertisement for lawyers, but we don't take on clients unless we have a vertical that can fully service them. And when I say service, I mean reviewing documents within 24 hours, getting a response to the closer just to say, hey, I got it. Here's my timeline for review almost immediately, and things like that, so that the ball is constantly rolling towards the closing table. And again, we don't take on clients unless we're able to do that. So,
All right, so 500 emails a day. Got it.
oh gosh, yeah,
Easily.
so many emails.
I'm sure.
I will say, Sterling, the good thing about it is a lot of emails, but because we have deal teams, well, I can't remember who said it at the beginning, but everybody kind of knows their role and what they have to do in the transaction. Our
Yeah.
closing paralegals are phenomenal. Like, they're the lifeblood of us because while there's an attorney on every single transaction, every single email, a lot of those emails are just, hey, organizing the file, making sure that the numbers are going to the right place, making sure that titles ordered, making sure that negotiations are prepped and sent out and all of that. So they're my right and my left hand sometimes. And I can't overstate how valuable they are.
Sometimes we get more emails from the paralegals than we do from the attorneys.
Yeah, there are certain
That's
situations.
true.
Their hands are deep into it, man. It's fantastic.
So when we email you, it's oftentimes are like the paralegals in your inbox as well?
No. They're separate
Who's
inbox.
the real Scott Oliver? Oh my God.
Who's that?
It's Chandler
Who's
Clark.
the real man behind the curtain?
No, we're always copied though. When I say that we have verticals, let's say that you would send me a deal and I'm working on it directly. I'm your attorney, and then Lindsay Eckert, or we have whoever it is going to be the paralegal on file. And then everything that we get, we're always copied because we
Yeah.
we have an internal system that allows that.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
When you say vertical, do you mean vertical industry wise or bank wise?
It's usually bank wise. We have some
Okay,
people that
all
are
right.
like experts on reorgs, like you said. That's usually going to go to me or Chandler. We have certain people who are experts in real estate deals, but most of the time it's going to be bank specific and even closer specific.
Yeah,
Because as you
okay.
guys all know, closers are super valuable too, and we try to make sure that our attorney kind of jives, I guess, with the closer. Because if you've got that relationship firing on all cylinders, man, those deals just crank, and it's
And
more
So,
not only is it important for the attorney, the paralegal, and the entire legal team to jive with your closer, but it's also important that if you're a local guy like I am, where more than half my deals get closed in
Stop
Michigan,
in and give them some cookies.
there's only one title company and law firm that I use here in the state of Michigan, right, Scott?
yes,
Who is
sir.
that?
You
Who
want to
is
say it
that?
or me?
No, you say it.
I'll say Birmingham.
Birmingham Title. That's right, baby. Big shout out to Birmingham Title
Shout out
here in the state of
Birmingham.
Michigan. I do 99% of all my business that is here in Michigan with them. And what's really cool is because Scott Chandler and his entire team have a great relationship with Birmingham Title and they speak the same language, my deals get closed lightning fast. I get Peter Halliboo over at Birmingham Title. He gets the title request.
Shout
He
out
gets
Peter.
the policy. Big shout out to Peter. Great.
Scott, are you guys taking on new banks or are you full?
We're where we want to be. We're trying to focus on
They're
building
comfy.
So
instant.
you heard that? Get your own Scott Oliver. If you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you're not in, it's too late.
Scram.
Scott's spoken for, but maybe you can
Done.
find your own Scott Oliver.
So Scott,
Good luck.
so out of all the deals that you're working right now, how many of them are 7A or are all of them 7A?
A vast majority are 7A.
Yeah.
So I do quite a few of 7A pari passu conventional deals, like search fund
Oh
deals.
wow.
Well, but that's still a 7A deal. We also have 504 transactions, but I would say those are much smaller volume than our 7A. We're bread and butter business and real estate acquisitions.
Are you seeing more pari passu deals getting done, Scott?
Yeah, probably in the last 2 or 3 years or so.
No kidding.
Yeah,
All
since
right.
Why is that?
I'm honestly
Because
not.
businesses are more
Because
expensive.
He's like, don't know, don't care.
the SBA loan limit needs to be increased. That's
It does.
why we need to go from 5 to at least $8 million. Trump, if you're hearing me, you need to do something. We need to raise the rates. We need to raise the limit on the SBA loans from 5 million to 8 million. Don't listen to the lamestream media. They are wrong. What we need to do is raise it. Raise it right now. Main Street needs some numbers. They need the funds. We need the capital. I heard that Main Street is the best way. Small businesses run this country. It's true. I know about it. I was a
I
small
hate you
business.
right now.
Listen,
I love
Sorry.
just
That's my
clip that
Trump
and send
impression.
it directly to whitehouse.gov, okay?
He'll be like all of a sudden we'll just get a notification like, what's Kroge doing at the White House? He's like, he's getting handed a Sharpie.
Oh, hey, you want to hear a funny story about me in the White House?
Oh, of course.
2008, right? The whole recession happens. Everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
I was 16, 17.
So Obama wrote this American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, right? And they added a new loan into the SBA loan called the ARC loan. And we were one of the first banks at the time. I was working for a community bank that wrote the very first ARC loan for one of my customers. It was a body shop here in Metro Detroit. And we not only got an invite to go down to the White House to meet the president, but we got into the vice president's report on the new ARC loan program and the America Recovery and Reinvestment Act program. So
Say that 10 times
there you
fast.
go. Yeah, exactly.
All right, Scott, I wanted to ask you about efficient lenders because we all know that is the name of the game, to be efficient in every aspect of 7A lending, or these deals will get held up and bottlenecked. Let's talk about communication between the attorney, the seller's attorney, the borrower, the closers. Like what do you expect to see and hear during this process? Like what's your favorite piece of all that?
Yeah, my favorite type of deal is one where we get the commitment from the closer and the closer says, "I have buyer's counsel. Here is buyer's counsel's information. Here is
Yeah.
seller's counsel's information. Here's the title company we want to use, or you can use whichever title company you want."
Or
Uh,
Birmingham Title.
yeah, Birmingham Title. If I have that information, I can do a file review hyper fast. I send out a global email to the attorneys and I say, "Hey, my name's Scott Oliver. I represent so and so. This is a 7A loan. Here are the things you need to expect. I understand you represent the buyer, you represent the seller. Please provide me with all most recent updated transactional documents and expectations. If I send that out and I get a response from buyer and seller's attorney quick, I know that that deal, no matter how complex it is going to just go like that. The ones that are issues are usually ones where there's either not counsel involved on the buy sell side, or you have a situation where you have, Mr. and Mrs. Big Law attorney who wants to fight about everything, or somebody who does family law and is not familiar with M&A transactions or SBA lending in general. Those
Oh,
can really cause an issue.
yeah, that's got to be frustrating, man. I
Yes.
don't like working with those types of attorneys either. They need to justify their fee, right? They need to justify their add-ons. And yeah, that's frustrating from a lending side as well. So I get that.
I was gonna ask, Scott, has there ever been a deal where you, like, saved the day, where something went really wrong in closing, or kind of there was a miscommunication between seller's attorney, you, closer, borrower? Have you ever, like, been a superhero?
Every single day.
Every day.
Every day.
I knew you were gonna That's so
He's
Kroge of
Listen,
you to say
every
something
deal
like
needs good
that.
counsel. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
No,
His-
that is
he's
very
got his
true.
tape on underneath his jacket.
That's it. No, but in actuality, sometimes yes. I think there are a lot of situations, and there will be more situations after June 1st,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
where
Oh
a
yeah.
competent SBA attorney is critical. Without getting into specific deal details, I would say it would be a transaction where you have attorneys who are like those that I just described, either want to justify their fee, or they're somebody's brother, sister's, cousin's best friend who doesn't know anything about SBA lending. They might be a great attorney otherwise, but they don't know these types of deals. And in those situations, sometimes they'll come to me with their hair on fire and say, I don't know what I am doing, and swallow their pride. And I will have to go through it and say, here's the SBA transaction. Here are the SOP guidelines. I can't give you legal advice, but here is what I need from you. And I'll quite literally, I've done this before, at 10 o'clock at night one night, got on a Zoom call with an attorney, a buyer's attorney who just needed help, and said, I need to know how to do this. And we got on a Zoom call and we talked about it, we hashed it out, and we got it done. I think those are the best examples of when lenders counsel can come in handy. And also when there are sticky situations where maybe things are messed up and maybe there's a transaction that has a contract that's ineligible. And instead of just saying, hey, kick it GP and let's wait 3 months to close,
Yeah.
you actually sit down and do what you were hired to do.
Mhm.
And the reason that I referenced June 1st is because you can't do that, lenders, after June 1st. If you're a PLP lender, you're not going to be able to just kick something that you're unsure of if your attorney doesn't know and say, send it GP and let's hide behind the GP processing. You're going to have to actually figure it out.
Does that make you, like, nervous that people are just gonna do that often, or expect you
Well,
to?
they can't
Yeah,
do it anymore,
they can't.
right? So, I mean, if anything, I think it just makes Scott more important to the process. And the question is, Scott, are you gonna be able to handle the volume? Because I think you are going to
Yeah.
become more important, and your 500 emails a day might go to 650 or 700.
Y
So,
You
and
should give
they're
your
going to want you to
paralegals a
do,
raise now.
yeah, and they're going to want you to do like real legal work where it's like you're giving an opinion.
Well,
We've
we've seen
always
Scott
tried.
already expand his practice. You've brought on several other attorneys. You guys have, expanded tremendously since we started working with you about 5 years ago. So I mean, you guys are huge in the SBA world.
Thank you. And I don't think that things will change too much, just because that's how we've always operated. I don't think somebody can fact check me on this if they want. I've
I
never,
will.
I've never told a client send this GP, and I don't think any of my associates have ever said that either, and none of my law partners in our practice group have,
Scott's
because
like,
maybe when we're engaged, we're not engaged to say we don't know, send a GP, unless there is a reason to actually send a GP. We're engaged to look at something and say, based on this, here is our interpretation. We believe this is a risk because of this. Bank, how do you want to proceed? Or this is downright, you can't do this, or downright, you can do this. That's what attorneys are for.
sounds
And
like you're
Right.
doing your job.
exactly, I know,
Right.
right?
Sounds like you're doing your
Scott,
job.
have you ever seen a bank that you told them like, "Hey, you really shouldn't do this," and they just did it anyways?
Yes, I actually have. I mean, and that's not saying that there is, an automatic guarantee issue that a bank takes a risk. But what you said at the beginning, Sterling, is really important. Attorneys aren't the bank. We are not hired to make the bank's decisions. I'm hired to, if the bank gives me something and I look at it and I say, there is a risk here. You're looking at a repair. This could happen and you could be in trouble. It's not, bank, you can't close this loan, deal's dead. It's, bank, here are the risks. How do you want to proceed? And then the bank gets to make the decision. We are GPSs. We're not some sort of roadblock to a deal. That's not what we're hired to do.
And they do a
Boom.
phenomenal job. I
That's your
know.
clip right there.
Yeah.
Drop that. Put it on LinkedIn right now. Can you put that on LinkedIn right now?
We are
Madison?
GPSs. That was good.
Right? And trying.
Bars.
Uploaded bars. So I don't want to get into the SOP updates too much, just because I know that there's so many moving parts coming. But what's going on at Lewis and Kappes? Like, are you guys starting to weed through those pages and just to educate the rest of the staff? Like, what's it look like over
Read
there?
every line, read it, and then give me the meat and potatoes clip notes.
It's the new wallpaper in the break room.
Right.
Well, I'm a nerd. I went through it with a fine tooth comb, mainly to produce some content articles. I'm happy to send you guys some of that if you're interested.
Sure.
But from our standpoint, we share everything internally and we have regular meetings to talk about it. With the SOP, there are so many changes in this new version, but most of the changes are just reverting back to what we already know.
Mhm.
So yes, some of our newer attorneys have never seen 5010-6 or even before then, before COVID, but most of them, some of them have been practicing 30 plus years. It's not me, but the ones that have been practicing for more than 5, 6 or so years, these rules aren't that different than what we used to do. But it gives us an opportunity to sit down with everybody, including paralegals, post-closing, associates, et cetera, and just say, hey, this thing changes. Not often, it's been more often recently, but when it changes, here are the things that we need to look at. Here are the things that are going to impact our deals. And here are the things that maybe your clients, the banks, are going to ask about that we don't necessarily handle because it's not legal side of things. But how can you counsel these banks to be better banks, to inform their customers, and to keep business pumping? Because a lot of borrowers are honestly, they're a little scared by these changes. But my messaging to them is, don't necessarily be afraid of the changes. Just realize it's reverting back and you just have a new sandbox to play in. And as long as you do it, you're still going to get the same deals done.
Play nice in the sandbox
Yeah.
too.
Don't be scared. I mean, these are the exact same rules we had about
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, it's true. I can't think of a
This
rule
is
that's more
identical.
stringent than what we had before COVID, really.
They're
Yeah.
more flexible. We don't need to get into details.
I
Good.
love the new rule changes. They go back to the way they should have
Okay.
been.
Cut.
I'm gonna say it. I was not on last week's episode where everyone was complaining about it. I love the new rule changes. This is a throwback. This is risk management.
Oh,
This is the
Ryan
way
loving a throwback.
SBA
Color
should
be
be.
surprised on that one.
Color
Ryan
me
feels like he's back in his prime. Okay.
Yes.
Back in my day.
Let's get back to the way SBA is supposed to be.
Oh man, I can hear the Monsell Jordan
Difficult.
blasting through Kroge speakers right now.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
absolutely. This is how we do it, baby.
Go.
Scott, thank you so much for joining our episode today. This was awesome. You're the first attorney we've ever had on here.
Honored.
So, all right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Go ahead and send your topics and suggestions to the BDO Show at artofsba.com, and we will see you next time.